I don't need it. I don't think any of us chew. I can't do it. If I tried to chew, I'd get sick.
If I was a snake handler like you, I'd have to chew.
Yeah? Well, I'm out.
So, boy, it's kind of a boring. I feel like all these guys on the podcast have exciting stories, but mine was kind of boring. I grew up in Oregon County, Missouri, 30 miles east of West Plains. But when I was a little bitty kid, my parents ran steers and heifers. And then my dad got elected to county office, and he was the assessor for 27 years or something. He did that, but we always had horses. Not cutting horses, not roping horses, just good solid horses, I guess. So I grew up doing that. My parents were involved in 4-H. They did a lot of that stuff, and then we did a lot of it when we were kids. I guess after that I got pretty heavily involved in sports.
Oh yeah.
And so my horse riding didn't happen a lot when I was playing sports, and then I went on to college and played a year of baseball, and then transferred to Missouri State. But and that's actually how we got hooked up, because Jordan was on the ranch horse team. But when I went to college, I knew, I worked some jobs, and I was like, there's got to be a better way for me to do something. You know, I worked at Gen X, and I really enjoyed that. I worked at S&H, and I enjoyed the camaraderie with the producers. But I found Roy Cox, a boy from Couch, which is another small town where I'm at, had worked for Roy when he was in college, and I got hooked up with Roy, and Roy was great. He was great for me, because he just put me on a bunch of horses, and I got to learn a lot from him.
What kind of horses did he deal with?
They were mounted shooting horses, actually, and they varied a lot.
Yeah, I've never been around the mounted shooting horses. I don't know anything about that.
So there was everything, mostly quarter horses, but there was we had them all, and one mule named Roscoe. I never will forget Roscoe. But you know, and that was a whole lot of getting those horses just desensitized, desensitized to the shooting, of course, but also the clients had to be able to ride the horse, and so just getting them where any Tom, Dick, and Harry could go jump on them and take off. I got to do that a lot, and see what it took to get those horses where they could handle that. But stop me if I'm forgetting a section of my life. Oh, well, I was in college too. I got the opportunity to go out west and work.
Yeah, you had briefly talked to me about that before, and I want to hear a little bit more about that, how you got hooked up with that deal, and where you ended up, and what that consisted of.
So I don't think my parents know this, but I actually got hooked up because I was drinking a beer at Buffalo Wild Wings with a buddy of mine. And Weston Henson is his name, and super good guy. He's in Oklahoma now. And but me and Weston were having us a beer and some wings at Buffalo Wild Wings when we were in school, and he said, you know, I've got this guy in Pinedale, Wyoming, and he's a super good boss. And he said, I can't go this year. I wish I could find somebody to recommend to go out there. And I was like, well, heck, why not? I'll go out there and try it. And I got a buddy of mine, Bryce King, to go out there with me, and he went back. I didn't go back because I was graduated college and got married, and so I was a little more tied down. But that was one of the best college experiences I had, was going out there to work.
And it was an internship?
Well, no, we went out there for the summer, and he paid us, and we fixed a lot of fence right off the bat, and then we rode through steers and heifers. There was about 2,000 head of steers and about 2,000 head of heifers that he got in on contract. Those cattle were kept at a little higher elevation. I think our bunkhouse was about 7,500 feet. Uh-huh. And so those cattle stayed up there with us, and then he kind of did his cow-calf deal, and we helped him some too with that. And then they cut hay. They cut hay. They've got about 10 days, give or take, to cut hay out there because it'll frost all the rest of the time. So that was quite the experience, to get to go out there and jump on those horses and get to cover country. And then it's where I learned to rope right-handed. Mm-hmm. I had one left-handed rope I took out there, and I snapped a Honda on it, and I figured I better learn how to rope right-handed. So I started heeling. When we'd go out and doctor, I'd heel right-handed, and that's how I learned how to toss a rope with my right hand.
and so that job, you pretty much got hired to come out there and take care of those cattle. What else did you do while you were there? Didn't you start some colts too?
Yeah. Well, actually, the colts we had, the boys before us had put some rides on, and that varied a lot on what that was. But Bryce and I, we kind of drafted. I let Bryce pick first, and he picked old Bo, and Bo was the best one of the bunch. And then he also had a little Mustang. He kind of looked like a halflinger's what he looked like. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we had this little string, and we ended up trading. I ended up getting Bo, and Bryce made the most athletic dismount I've ever seen somebody make. That horse pitched him over his head, and he landed on his feet. Uh-huh. But no, there's got to work with Taylor Selby, and Taylor was a super good guy, and just always having a hooch, Uh-huh. I never will forget. I thought I was a cowboy when I went out there. Uh-huh. And we had the river had got low, and there were some heifers. They just fenced down to the river because it was usually up high enough that they didn't. Well, the river had got low, and they'd went around the fence. And so I think it was about a quarter mile to the gate. Bryce and I just assumed we were going to sort them off and run them down the road into the gate. That'd be what the deal was. And Taylor pulled his trailer up there and kind of half cocked it up against ours. And I said, well, what's he doing? This is in the middle of a 400-acre field, And what's he doing? He said, Taylor got out of his truck. I said, what's the plan here? He said, I thought we ought to just drag him in the trailer. Huh. Well, this is going to be way more interesting. So we got the first one. It just worked like a charm. I was like, these guys talk about doing this as being hard. It just worked like a charm. Well, the next one was a little different deal. So, but we got them all in there. Taylor had some good dogs at the time. He could go in and rope one out of the bunch, and them dogs holding the herd up. I told Taylor that was the most cowboy thing when he unloaded his horse. That horse was trying to buck him off. It broke his back the year before, that same horse. And his horse was trying to buck him off, and he was yelling at these dogs, and he was whipping his horse with a rope, turned around yelling at his dogs, and that was the most cowboy thing I've ever saw in my life. But no, they were good guys. Aaron Wilson's who we worked for, and super good guy to work for. he got on us one day. We moved some of his cows for him. Me and Bryce, we set up. I was blocking the road. Bryce brought them on up there, and them cows went out there. We didn't think anything about it, We put them in a 40-acre field here, that's a big field. And he said, somebody better get around them cows and mother them up. And we're like, mother them up? What are you talking about? They can't. It's like, there's 400 acres out here. They won't ever find their calf, So that we got a good lesson in mothering cows up out there. But
And this is when you were in college?
Yeah.
Just one summer?
Yeah, that was my last year of college. I wish I'd done it every year. Aaron and his wife, Diane, they were super good to work for, and man, I learned a lot. And just getting to ride those horses in that big country, in that open country, it was quite the experience. Got to shoot a lot of little ground squirrels.
So you went out there that summer. So at Missouri State, so where'd you go to college first? You said you played at
Missouri Valley.
Missouri Valley. You played baseball there 1 year, right?
Yeah. And I taught Tim O'Connell everything he knows about riding a bareback horse.
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding. No, but we were there at the same time. But but he was moving on to bigger and better things way before I was.
Yeah. And so then you end up at Missouri State, and so you were on the ranch horse team, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about that and how you started that and the tryouts and everything it consisted of.
So I got to be friends with Jordan, and he was already on the ranch horse team. And he said, you ought to do this. I was like, I don't know. I'm more interested in partaking in other activities. He said, no, you ought to do it. I was like, all right, I'll try out. And they put me on Sunny. They said, all right, you're going to run this reining pattern. And I had no idea what a reining pattern was. They handed me this sheet of paper that said circles to the left and circles to the right. And I didn't know what they was talking about. So he was like, just go out here and lope some circles. Jordan told me that. He's like, just go out here and lope some circles. Well, Sonny kind of kicked up a little bit, and I just kind of punched him through it or whatever. And they're like, hey, we can use this guy. To get some of this nonsense out. So they let me on, not because I did a good reining pattern, I promise. But no, so I rode Sonny and Webb and Jordan. They taught me a lot just by being around them. Webb would always tell me that I wasn't riding in a pasture anymore. We were trying to show horses, So, but anyway, that's kind of how that went. Made some good friends, Jordan and Kelsey, of course, and Webb, Gary, and Sue, and Courtney. I'm trying to think who else was. It was a good time. Chase but that's how. And Jordan helped me a lot. Well, he'd been working for you. I don't know if he was working for you at the time.
Yeah.
Or not. No, he wouldn't have been working for you.
If anything, it would just been in the summer. But,
right.
But
yeah. Boy, he taught me a lot about feeling those horses a little more. And because I just crawled on and, they don't go left. Make them go left, know. And so he taught me a lot about teaching them and getting their mind a little more right.
And so after college, did you meet your wife in college?
No. So actually, my wife and I, we got married the summer after I got back, or this fall after I got back from Wyoming. We had dated since we were seniors in high school.
Okay.
And boy, she's a good one. That's one of the better decisions I've made in my life. So that makes a big difference.
Yes.
Marrying a good one.
Yeah, having good support.
Yep. And she said, I always wanted to marry a cowboy, and then I married one. I don't know about that.
Yes.
But no, she's good. She's very business-minded. Got a good head on her shoulders. I think the world of her parents and her grandparents. She's got a rock-solid foundation there.
Yeah. She have anything to do with horses? Grow up with horses?
No. They had a few emus When she was or ostriches. Ostrich is what they had.
Yeah.
They had a horse. One just they'd go get on or whatever, but ride around a little bit, but nothing too major. So she's rode a few times with me. We had a big black and white horse there at the house. We still got him. Jack, we call him. She rode him the first time, and she could barely make him move forward. He's just old ranch gelding, and he's big. So I put her on when I got home from college, I'd started a paint mare for my dad, and she had a little more feel to her, so she got on her and just went to kicking her like that black and white horse. Well, she just loped right on past me, and then I put her on my little gray mare, and she just fell in love with that little gray mare. I took her to Clinton, and then I sold her. So I got in trouble over that.
Yes, that'll happen.
Yeah, but
So you got married, and then you got out of college.
Well, we were out of college when we got married. I should have clarified that. We dated all through college, and then as soon as we got out of college, we got married.
Yeah. And so then you went to work
at the
school.
So I had an ag business degree, and I didn't know what I was going to do, so I was looking at the financial institutions and the big companies because I knew that's where the money was. And Purina was definitely on my radar, and Robo AgriFinance were two things that interested me a lot, but they were both in St. Louis. And I hated that idea, but the money was good. And my good friend Byron Riker, I say he's a good friend. He's a mule guy, so I guess he's a good friend. But no, he called me. He said, "Hey, would you be interested in teaching ag?" And I said, "At Alton?" And that's where I went to high school at. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, yeah, but I don't have an ag education degree. That's not." He said, "I think we can make it work if you want to do this." And it did work out good for me. The school had been through some ag teachers, just teachers in general, and they wanted people from the community that they thought would stay there. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I took a job at Alton, and then I had to take some education courses. It was a good learning experience for me, and I was excited to be back home, more than anything. One of the best jobs in our area, for sure. Oregon County, where we're at, is it's one of the poorest places in the United States. So, no, I was excited to be back. Carrie came back. She worked at a hair salon and then opened her own place up, and that's been a blessing. She's a hard little worker. So, it's that was good. That was good for us to get and an excuse to be back home.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, so when did I first meet you? Did we meet at the wagon races?
We did. We met at the wagon races. Jordan conned me in coming down there, and that's where you and I met.
Yeah. I was pretty sure that's where we hooked up at, but I could not remember for sure. Yeah. So at that time, you're working for the school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As an ag teacher.
Yep. As an ag teacher.
And so over time, we've visited more, and of course you come up here every once in a while and are running Bar 9
colt starting.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the move from being an ag teacher to what you're doing now, and what you do now, and what it entails, and what made you make the decision, and just how you got to where you're at now.
Well, you know what? I am not a guy that jumps ship on things. I want to lay out a plan, and so the ag teaching deal provided me a solid income while I was kind of getting established a little bit. And while I was teaching, I was starting a couple colts here and there. Pretty regularly I had a couple colts to start, and then I started putting together a few cattle. And I had some cows for a while, and then I went with the yearling deal because it's what I felt like I knew better and what worked better for me. so I just had enough to keep me busy when I got out of school. And then it just kept getting busier and busier and busier. And it got to the point where I couldn't grow the cattle or the horses any and be at school too. Mm-hmm. Now, in the meantime, I don't want to take this away from my time teaching. It did allow Carrie and I to get in a good place financially. That's what I use that job for, is to get rid of some of that and take care of that, and then build those assets along the way. Mm-hmm. Fortune, I guess, would have it, a couple of things happened that kind of points you in a certain direction, but I was getting overwhelmed. I was riding horses at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I was kind of getting over that. I wasn't seeing my family any. There's a older gentleman, Gary Alexander, that he's leased most of my mom and dad's for years, and one of the best operators I know. He needed some help, and some more consistent help than I was able to give while I was at school and trying to do all my other things. So he needed some help, and I saw that as a great opportunity to learn more than anything. The other thing that happened was Ryan Moore left the facility at Thomasville, where I'm at now, and has his own place at Fordland now. So that barn was open, and so I got to lease it and get all my horses down there. It provided me a roof in the winter and lights at night, mm-hmm. Which was a big deal for me. Now the wind will rip through that little barn, but it's dry. Mm-hmm. And so I got that, and then I started helping Gary about the same time, and that was enough for me to say. And we, like I said, Carrie and I were in a place where we thought back up a little bit, and so everything worked out timing wise for me to quit teaching ag and go chase this dream of starting colts and running calves. And I think me and you talked about it too. It was getting really hard for me to try to teach kids that did not even remotely share a passion for what I loved, mm-hmm. They just didn't care. And so I needed to be somewhere else where I felt like I was, I can take these horses and I can take these steers and feel like I'm making them better at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so that played a role too.
Yeah. And I imagine that was a pretty scary step.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's for a lot of people. The other trainer at my barn, made the same decision about 4 years ago. And mm-hmm. and I plan on having her on here at some point in time for everybody to hear her story. But even myself, I was in the aerospace industry when I quit, mm-hmm. and headed out west, and was just going to, what I call, live the dream, or at least try. Yeah. The dream looked very different once I got out there.
It does. Yeah, it does. But, there's boy, that was a big step. And I had been the kid / adult that did the right things. I went to school and got my degree. I did everything by the book. And so to step out on my own was a big deal. That was a big deal for me. And again, I don't want to toot her horn too much. She'll get the big head, but Carrie running her own business and knowing that I had somebody there in my corner that understood, mm-hmm. That was a big deal for me,
and it's important to have someone in your corner to balance it. It's mm-hmm. like we teach a lot of amateurs and non-pros, and we just got back from a horse show yesterday. Mm-hmm. We were all up there at the horse show. We had a non-pro come up, and he said, you two are very different, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
My wife works a lot on the presentation, and the rider's appearance, and how they're presenting themselves to the judge and to the horse also. And I'm looking at it more from a horsemanship, horse rider relationship. And how do we get the horse to tune in 100% mentally and be honest as we think he should be. Yeah. The horse always thinks he's honest, but we're just trying to get him to operate at what I call mental zero, not getting ahead of us or behind us.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm focused a lot on that with the clients. And, you know, my wife is really anal about the presentation. And it's like, I don't care what color, you know, blanket I have over my pad, right, and if my shirt matches. But she cares a lot. Yeah. I remember one of the first shows I went to, she sent me, and she did not go with me. And I was working for Whitley Quarter Horses at the time before I bought that over there. And I had a good friend, Jennifer. We were at Oklahoma City at the Quarter Horse Show, and I was sharing a tack stall with her and another gal. And they were everything was very organized in their tack stall. Yeah. You know, and I come from more of a roping background and cowboy, you know. Yeah. I come in and I said, "Hey, Jen, you know, which pad do you think I should use?" And we're looking at the pads. And she's like, well, do you have anything else? And that was Jen's way of very politely saying, neither one of those. Yeah. And basically, I had a pad that was outdated. I didn't know that. I was about functionality. Yeah. And it was functional. It was clean, but it was dated. Yeah. And so ever since then, Jen says, why don't you let your wife pick your pads and your clothes and you show the horses? Yeah. And I said, sounds like a deal to me. Yeah. Yeah. But it does take that balance in a business and everything. And we've talked a lot about our wives, you know, and you have to have strengths over here, like in creativity and things, and you have to have someone more structured. Yeah. And you have to find that balance because you can complement one another a lot. Yeah. And it's not rocket science, as we've talked about a lot of the things in life, but it's just like in our horsemanship, it's fundamentalism done to at a high level. Yeah. You know,
I can't brag on her enough, but you mentioned that Carrie has your Carrie.
Yes, both of our wives named Carrie. Yeah. Yes.
So your Carrie has that creative side, and my Carrie, her, you know, she loves the business side of things. And
so in your first year, when you how long have you been doing it now? Full time, like when you quit your job.
So full time, this will actually be my last actual day was June 30th at R4. So because ag teachers in the state of Missouri have a 12-month contract. I see. So, you know, and that's
so you've been doing it now for how long?
Let's see, it'll be a year in June.
So what do you think some of your biggest takeaways that you've learned from going part-time to full-time in the horse training industry? Because you mostly take 60-day and under colts, 90-day?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think you've learned? Because you have worked for some people. I think you worked for Ryan a little bit. Yeah. And Ryan, cutting horse trainer, Ryan Moore. Yeah. I mean, he worked for Ryan for a little bit. What's some of the takeaways being on your own that you've learned in your first year?
So I guess I should back up a little bit. I was very fortunate growing up to be around a number of guys that were horsemen in very different ways. So, you know, there's guys that I help now on the ranch that just good hands. Stanley Bell was a cutting horse trainer before Ryan at Thomasville, and Stanley is the most calm, cool, and collected guy on a horse I've ever seen. I mean, he can get so much out of him and never even he look like he's mad, sad, or indifferent. And so being around Stanley and just their demeanor around horses, you know, when Stanley was there, and then when Ryan was at Thomasville a little bit, I was cleaning stalls, you know, most of the time. But just being around those guys and getting to handle those horses a bunch, watching my dad and Tommy Johnson just around their horses there's a feel to just being around them. And so I had that experience, and then I started some colts for Ryan a few years ago. And anyway, so that's kind of my background. I was very blessed to be around those guys. Even at times when I wasn't doing a lot of riding, I was getting to see how they handled their horses and things like that. So I guess I got totally off topic, but what was your question?
Yeah, like just what's some of the big takeaways in the first year? I mean, I know we talk about horses and everything that surrounds the industry that people don't understand. And part of the the whole principle for the podcast that I came up with that I wanted to do is I wanted the people to have a different perspective, a different view into the world, and not just horses, but in life. That there's such a picture, especially with social media now, that we think is going on. And even before social media, you think you know what a horse trainer goes through or what their life or their daily life is, but there's so much more you learn. It's just like everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I learn so much every day. Boy, there's a lot. In the first year, probably more in how, probably the biggest takeaway for me is how to get across to clients where their horses are truly at and what the situation is, and explain it to them in a way they understand it. And also learning how to talk to each client, because they're so different. That's been the biggest learning curve, I guess, for me. Whereas when I was just starting a couple 2-year-olds every month, it was, hey, here's your horse, lopes, trot, walk, trots, lopes, backs up, have at it, have fun,
Yeah, get after it.
But and trying to explaining things to my clients and helping them out a little bit with their horses, I think has improved them. Probably been my biggest improvement over, and just being self-aware, being really self-aware of where you're at. So my good buddy Jason Cook always, when I come up here and I'm riding one around, he's like, every once in a while I get to keep one of these horses a while. And, I'm trying to progress them and make them a little better. And he's like, one of these days you're going to have to start riding colts around, and so I get so used to, I get caught in that trap. I'm starting colts all the time where I'm helping them out and not letting them figure it out on their own or helping them too much.
Yeah.
And, just being self-aware of that on these horses that I've had a little longer, and making those horses take a little more responsibility for themselves. That's some of the big takeaways that I've had.
So if I remember right about this story, I want to hear about this hip. So this is a story that kind of stands out that we spoke about. And I don't know if we were in Kansas when you told me or where I was at, but you told me about this story. And so let's hear a little bit about how you broke your hip, right?
Yeah.
How you broke your hip, when it was, and how all this.
So this would have been back when I was just riding a couple colts for people, and my good buddy, I got to call him out on here, Devin Clary, had a highbrow cat colt out of a Gold Bucks mare, and on Merle they called him, and Merle was a little spicy, but anyway, I had started him. They'd messed with him a little bit, and he'd blow up anytime they put a saddle on him. And I'd rode him 30 days in the fall, and they kicked him out, which is a pretty common practice where I'm at. Start those colts in the fall, and then you can get them up in the spring of their 3-year-old and go to work on them. So Devin called me, and he said, hey, you care to come down here and ride this colt for 30 days, Yeah, I'll do that. And I knew he'd been a little spicy, but I didn't I wasn't too worried about it because I was young and dumb, I guess. So anyway, I got him in there and I gypped him around about 5 circles both ways. And 2 of those, he kind of hopped around or whatever. I said, I think he'll be all right. Well, Bryce, who I went out west with, he was riding a really nice Palomino mare. And this colt had wanted to kind of sour up to one corner. So I told Bryce, I said, hey, get over in that corner in case he wants to kind of sour up to that corner. And he was sitting on that mare, and I stepped on that colt. I started walking him around to the left. And I got over there about that corner, and that mare, you know how they'll switch hips?
Uh-huh.
You know, she just kind of rocked over on the other hip. And when I looked back square, we were in the middle of a round pen, and it was on. And old Merle won that one, and that sand was deep, and I just can't figure out how. I'm pretty sure what happened because he launched me. I mean, he caught me just right. I was coming back down in my saddle, and he was coming up. Well, we met together, and just catapulted me out of there, and my hip, that it ended up broke my hip, but I wasn't, you know, I'm a cowboy, I'm tough. So I stood up because I didn't know where the horse was. And then I fell right back down, and I thought, well, that ain't probably good. And I shimmied over to the fence post there, or the panel. And I mean, I was sweating like a pig. And I was like, this dead leg will get on over, you know. And his grandma Bonnie, she hated that horse. She came down there and she said, you need me to shoot that horse? I said, no, it'd be all right. I just got a dead leg, you know. It's coming back to me. It didn't, and everybody and their brother drove by that day for whatever reason. And anyway, I got there and I still couldn't walk on this sucker. So Bryce and Devin put me in my truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I loaded my border collie dog up, and we head to the house. And I called Carrie when I got in the driveway, not a second before, and said, hey, you probably going to have to come help me in the house. I can't. Well, she's not as big and stout as those boys. She couldn't pick me up. She's like, you need to go to the hospital. I said, I ain't going to the hospital. It's a dead leg. I'm going to be over it in no time. So we're like, how am I going to get in the house? Well, it's right at dark, and I am a new ag teacher in a community that is, everybody knows everybody. And the first thing that goes through my mind is they're going to see me crawling through this yard and think the new ag teacher's coming home blind drunk.
Yeah, yeah.
So I told Carrie, I said, anytime somebody drives by here, and we lived in town at the time, anytime somebody drives by here, shine your light on your phone, and I'm going to look around in the grass like I'm looking for something. So they don't think this ag teacher's coming home blasted. So I got up to the front door, and she drugged me in the house.
Uh-huh.
And went to bed. My mom, sympathy is not my mother's strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
So Carrie called her and said, your son's not going to the hospital. And he said, well, if he's not going to the hospital, he needs to take a hot Epsom salt bath. Well, then I thought I was going to be stuck in the bathtub butt naked and have the ambulance come get me. I didn't know I was ever going to get out of there. But anyway, I went to bed. Well, Carrie, we had a blanket over us, you know, and Carrie rolled over or something, and it caught one of my toes, and I thought I was going to die. No, it hurt bad. And she said, that's it. You're going to the doctor. So I ended up going to the doc. We went to the ER. I guess that would have been on a Sunday. Yeah, it's broke. We'll see you Monday. Get a plan together. I got really fortunate. Dr. Jolly, who's actually a neighbor of mine, was my doctor, and she said, we're going to give it a chance to heal. So I ended up not having to have surgery. I went back in 2 weeks, and it hadn't really grown together, but nothing was worse, right? And that was as good as anything. So I think I was in a wheelchair for 4 weeks and on crutches for 2 and with a cane for 2 weeks. So Carrie and I had just got married. Her car broke down on her honeymoon. Transmission went out of it, so we just bought a new car together. And I broke my hip all in a matter of about 6 months there, and we got a lot of bonding just right off the bat. Because you got to have some real special care when you got a hip broke. I'm here to tell you.
I would say so. Goodness sakes. And then, now you told me one of your legs. Now, what's wrong with one of your legs?
There's a lot wrong with me, Jason. But so, and I'll tell this, but I don't ever want it to be an excuse. Mm-hmm. But when I was born, my mom had a C-section, and somewhere along the way, there's just a little bit of scar tissue on the left side of my brain over 3 nerve endings, cords, I don't know what you'd call them, and so it makes my right side a lot weaker than my left.
Okay.
And you've seen me ride around, like I can't turn my ankle out like I can my left. It's just not as functional. It was the worst when I'd go through growth spurts as a kid because it was so far behind learning how to navigate things. But I'm actually, when I do a good job of running and exercising and stretching, it helps out a bunch. And I got to be more cognizant of that. I don't ever want that to be an excuse for anything, but it is something I'm aware of. And anyway, I'm very dominantly left-handed, and that was interesting little find,
Yeah.
And the reason my mom noticed that was when I was a kid, I'd be acting like I was putting my dad's deodorant on, and I couldn't, with my right hand, I couldn't put it on, like it should be, and so she picked up on that, and then I did some physical therapy when I was a kid to kind of help that, and motor skill and stuff like that.
But you still played baseball. So what did you do in baseball? What position?
So in college I pitched only, and when I played first base, left field, and pitched when I was in high school, and hit left-handed, and that's what I did. I wasn't a flamethrower or nothing. I was just left-handed. Could get it over the plate, So, boy, and I love, to this day, I love baseball. That's a little bit of a riff in our house. My wife's dad's family's all from Kansas City, and they're big Royals fans, and I grew up a die-hard Cardinal fan.
Yes,
and
we were Cardinal fans. My dad was a Cardinal fan.
Oh yeah,
and my grandpa and everybody listened to him on the radio.
Yep. That's
So, and you come up today. You're taking home a few horses.
Yeah.
Some for some other clients, and then I've got one that a client of mine has, and you're going to go ride him a little bit, and hopefully he's going to have a long career. It's a little highbrow cat, Shorty Lena bred stud colt.
Yeah.
We'll put the first ride on him today.
First ride on him today.
Yeah. What are your first thoughts on? We haven't even named him yet. I guess we can call him Shorty unless you come up with something else.
I'll have to ponder it. We need a good name. We keep good names around here.
Yeah, you can't let my daughters name them because they named one Bunny Chair.
Yeah, right.
And you can't change their names, because that's bad luck. So we called him BC.
Well, I've got Peaches for the same reason.
Well, that's a little better than Bunny Chair. Yeah.
But no, that's that was fun today, and excited about taking that colt home, and
it's a little, you have to do a lot of this on your own. Of course, you work alone.
Yep,
and that's very tough. And since you were coming to get the colt, we done a little bit of groundwork up here.
Yeah,
and I tried to have him ready.
Right,
and he was he took it quite well.
Oh yeah,
and a few weeks ago he was feral. He was raised in a 400-acre Bermuda pasture.
Yeah,
and basically just when I went to get him, he was in they had ran 2 stud colts into a pen, separated them off, and I backed the trailer up, and we ran them in like cows.
Yep,
and
no, I thought that little colt was really trying to do right. And
Yes.
boy, that's all you can ask for on the colts. Is
Yes.
the try.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but and I guess we should clarify, since we're on here, we got a little different setups, where you're at and where I'm at. So
Definitely.
Again, very, very blessed. I'm in a place where I can go ride a long ways.
Yes.
And I can do a lot of hills and river crossings and things like that. And so, you've sent me those horses before that, heck, they're broke. They're the brokest thing I've ever sat on. But they need to go have a job and go do something outside. And so that's what you kind of use me for is.
Yeah. And that's so important. I have the barn that I ride in. It's a 70 by 160 and an outdoor pen, which this winter, I mean, today it was good, but this winter it's been really muddy and wet. And it's been a good winter, but it just takes more to dry out.
Yeah.
It just does. And so we've been stuck inside, but I say stuck. I mean, I don't know what I'd do without it, how I would make a living. It's 70 by 160 and we don't have a round pen because we started a lot of our colts like you and I did today.
Yeah.
And that's kind of eliminated the round pen. And I'm not against round pens. I mean, we've had them before, but we can kind of get by without it.
Yeah.
And we can get a lot done in there. It's small, but you find what you can do and what you can't.
Yeah.
We've got a flag set up in there. We can work cows a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard to run and stop.
Yeah.
It's just not very easy on that, but hey, you can get a horse to stand up in there. You can get a horse to stand up anywhere,
right,
and not lean. And of course, when they need to go out, they go to you, and and you know what to expect at first. You get on them, and they're like, they're broke, but they're not going to let you know that yet.
Yeah,
and they're going to look around.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that one place you were riding some of our horses. I mean, you said it was 5 miles to where you went to work.
Yeah,
and you would just long trot all the way there, work all day, long trot back.
Yeah. That's
that's what makes them.
That's Gary, the guy I mentioned. I'll trot them horses up the road. I can leave from my barn, and it's about 5 miles, and we can do whatever we need to, and then I can trot them back, and they've got the neighbors up through there are really good about putting out distractions like dogs and jacks and other things, so they'll get to see some things.
And yearlings running at you.
Yeah. That's the longhorns I ride by when I go up there. They hit the brush pretty fast when they see me coming. Yeah, but
and that's so good for them because we have 20 acres right there at the place. And that makes it a little tougher. Now, if we want to go ride our horses out, we've got state parks.
Yeah.
Fairly close. We have one about 20 minutes from the barn. And we do haul down there occasionally. Probably not enough. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we get a lot done and try to give these horses a job because the more we can give them a reason to do something other than us, I think it just works a lot better for them. Especially your cow-bred horses that I ride. I mean, now some of the more docile reiner bred horses that are more asking you more questions, and more dependent upon you, it's a little different. But the others, it's not like that.
So fortunate to be able to, especially in the spring and fall when it gets busy and those horses are just going to work. Mm-hmm. And then so I've got Gary up there, and then I've got 2 or 3 other guys I help, and I help some at the ranch where I lease the facility, and then I've got my own stuff to go do, and you're always trying to be smart about the situation you're putting colts, especially into, but boy, that giving them something to do is just there's nothing.
There's
better.
nothing like it.
No, there's.
We took 2 colts to the show yesterday. Other than the school, we were schooling one horse for another show coming up, and we threw in a couple of our own, which is very unusual. But we're trying to do that more. One we just rode around. One we did put in a schooling class, and he's very watchy.
Yeah.
So, and it just so happened that where we tied him up for the day, and this was not intentional, but his biggest phobia is a blue tarp. Now, he will go over one. He will.
Yeah.
And you can lunge him. Well, you could put one on him when you lunged him if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But he's going to ask you every time.
Yeah.
And he's going to be convinced that it's not good.
Yeah.
But he will go over, and he never lets me down. I done a demonstration about 6 months ago, and we done a little benefit. And they said, "Will you do a demonstration?" I said, "Yeah, I've got perfect horse." About having faith and stuff. And I threw that tarp down, and that horse has been over that tarp I don't know how many times, and walked over it quietly. But every day's a new day.
Yeah.
Now he's good in other areas, but we tied him up there, and I look across that fence, and there is a blue tarp right there. And believe me, he knew it was there. But he is broke.
Yes, he is so broke. I rode him, and I never will forget this. I rode him on that 5-mile journey.
Yes.
And we, every night we gather. There's a few pastures there. We gather and feed, and the new cattle that we're checking. And I thought, well, I'll just do it horseback, And there was a few of them laying in the barn. There's a lean-to barn, and I was like, well, I can just ride him in here, and boy, that roof got real close to my head, and he was walking on eggshells when them calves started standing up, and I was like, well, this might not be such a good idea, but we made it through it.
Yeah.
And Clara she loves old Booger. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's a good one. You done a good job for him. He had never had a day's work in his life.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted him to have. And he stuck around the barn. He was a little, pill to start, but then ended up making a really nice horse.
Yeah.
And he is real broke. He's smooth to ride.
Yeah.
He's not very big.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, so if you guys need anything rode out and exposed, because Frank will do a job on them.
Yeah.
They will have something to do. They're not going to just lope circles in a barn. I can assure you of that. And you might look up Bar 9 colt starting. Where can they find you at?
So I've just got an Instagram set up. My Facebook's just my personal name.
Frank Alford?
Yeah, Frank Alford. And
How you spell the last name?
Alford is how you spell the last name. But I think my phone number's on there. I get enough spam calls. It should be.
And then on Instagram?
And then on Instagram, yeah.
What is it on Instagram?
It's Bar 9 Colt starting on
just Bar 9?
Yeah, there might be an underscore in there somewhere. I can't remember.
Okay, Bar 9 Colt starting.
Yeah.
On Instagram, and you probably don't put enough on there like the rest of us.
Yeah, I don't. I'm terrible about trying to get. Well, we were talking about just having one person there. The when I'm trying to video a horse for a client or whatever the case may be, it's sitting on a fence post somewhere, and you're getting
in and out
all the time.
There he goes.
Yeah, there he goes.
Whoop, there he goes.
Yeah. What happened? Nobody knows.
We've had people come hang out around the barn or take lessons, and we had a client yesterday just watch his school all day on his horse.
Yeah.
And he said he looks at schooling different now. He didn't understand.
Yeah.
Really what you were looking for in schooling, and that's a whole nother topic. But that's stuff that I'm still learning about, and how to school and how to do it where you get something out of it.
Yeah.
And schooling your horse in the classes to keep them honest and working good.
And I'll just tell you, like when I was on the ranch horse team at Missouri State, I was the same way. When I took those horses into the show pen, and I knew I was just working on trying to make something better, I showed them way better than when I went in there and was trying to get them showed.
Yeah, just get by.
So that's something that I've struggled with, and trying to. I didn't do very much of it last year, but I'm trying to go to more shows and get some more exposure just to get more comfortable in that setting.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, that's probably about it. I appreciate you sitting down with me. I hope you can come up more often. The next big event you have over in your neck of the woods is the big eclipse, right?
Oh, yeah. They say this thing's going to be wild.
Yeah, they said everything's booked over in your neck of the woods for.
Well, yeah. There's no hotels, Airbnbs, rentals, anything.
Nothing available.
And haven't been for a while for that weekend that's supposed to happen.
That's pretty crazy. Well,
But,
if you guys want to check him out, like I said on Facebook, Frank Alford, ALFORD, and then you can probably they can message you on Facebook too.
They can message.
Or you could find him on Instagram, bar9
Colt starting.
And he doesn't think there's an underscore on that, but we might check
think
that out.
I don't know what.
I may put some information for that in the description, link to that, and you guys can check him out. And I hope you come back up here soon. It's been fun. Maybe we can have a conversation about the unnamed colt.
Oh yeah, well, see where he's at.
Yeah, see where he's at on his journey, and with any more you have, and you can come back up. And I guess the next time I might see you, we might be flying out west. Possibly going to fly out west and get us some education.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And hopefully have an uneventful trip.
Yeah. Yeah. And, uneventful trips are boring, Jason.
Yeah. No, I'm in for one. We had an eventful trip last time out. Yeah. But anyway, we try to continue our education too. And,
you bet.
And we go seek out our mentors and try to get a lot more work done on ourselves and look at things from a different perspective and point of view. And that's, like I said, the whole point of this podcast is to see stuff through a different set of eyes. We talk about changing eyes, and in horses, there's the changing eyes that get you.
Yeah.
So many times people get on head bent to the left. In a real simple example of this, head bent to the left, and you get on and you've not taken the time to expose that horse to you disappearing and reappearing out of that other eye from the other point of view.
Yeah.
And then the horse, when you release him to go back to the right, if you've not done your homework, sometimes he becomes troubled. And,
it will happen.
Yeah, we had one come in the other day like that we were checking out. And sure enough, to the left he was fine. And he was supposed to have been broke, you know. And as soon as he seen us out of the right eye, it was on. You know, but we have some things to do to help that and get by it. But that's the whole point of the podcast. Different perspective, a view into some of the lives of the people in the equine industry, and just people that I run into and meet. You know, people I think we can get some value from and learn from. And any of you guys out there or girls aspiring to be horse trainers, I encourage you to reach out. It's not easy, but nothing is, and you only live once, and I encourage you to live your dream. I tell people all the time, if you write down one thing you could do on a piece of paper, no matter what it paid, say it all paid $10 million a year, what would it be? And when you look at that piece of paper, hopefully you're doing that that dream. Because if you have the dream, obviously you have the desire. Now the work comes in, but you can sure enough achieve that with hard work, consistency, and dedication. And that's what Frank's done. I remember when he called me about, turning in his teaching career and
retiring.
He said, "You think I can do this?" I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And he did it, and I hope he keeps doing it and grows his business and continues to have fun with the horses and the cattle.
And the cattle.
And the cattle market right now is crazy.
Oh, it is crazy.
It's pretty nuts.
But, it is crazy. What's not?
Yeah, what's not crazy. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll get off here and let you go, and we will plan on maybe seeing you again next time you come up. Maybe we can ride a few around and spend some time together.
Yeah, you bet. Sounds good, Jason.